How are you?
We are here. I'm good. How are you?
I'm really good. How's Calgary? I heard the weather's shitty.
It's pretty nice today. We just had like hella rain last week for a little while, and today it's finally pretty nice.
You know nothing of rain, my friend.
Yeah, you guys probably get it pretty bad out there.
Dude, the rain here is crazy. I've never seen weather like this.
Yeah,
It's ridiculous.
yeah. Our start of summer was like, well, spring was like summer, and it was
Yeah,
like 30 degrees, and then when summer started, it turned to like spring, and it just started raining for like a week straight, and got kind of miserable. But
yeah. Calgary's not used to that, eh?
no, definitely not. Yeah, it was like August heat in like May.
See, we've had one or two nice days here,
Mm.
and it was so hot that it was unbearable.
Sheesh. Well, you're not
We
climatized.
we couldn't even go outside. Like it was muggy and gross and shitty, man.
Yeah, I don't do well with the moistness.
But there's a lot of moisture here.
Yeah, I
Like,
don't do well with the humidity. That's for sure. I almost prefer the dry heat almost.
yeah, we have every. It's weird because in Calgary we have humidifiers in our furnace, right, built in, and then here they have dehumidifiers because if they didn't, your walls would mold out.
Yeah, no doubt.
And like here, freezing rain is something that I didn't know existed.
Mm,
Freezing rain is really awesome. It really burns your face when you're walking down the street.
sounds awesome.
So when you come to visit,
Yeah, I'm excited. Oh, I'm
actually,
excited though. Regardless, no matter what, it's gonna be a good time.
yeah, we don't even have to go outside when you come visit.
Maybe a bit. I gotta see some things, man.
I
I
know.
gotta see some things.
I'm just fucking with you, man. Of course, we're gonna. There's lots of really cool things here. Like two of the seven natures of or wonders of the world or whatever are here in this province.
Two of them?
Two of them. So one of them is the Bay of Fundy, which
Is it
is
fun?
like not really. It's just like it's when the tide goes out, it goes out for miles.
Okay.
So like fishermen get stuck, they get landlocked randomly
Yeah.
after being in the ocean. All of a sudden they're on the beach,
On the land.
and then we have reverse waterfalls here as well, which I
That's a
haven't seen
thing.
yet. Yeah, apparently they found saltwater fish upstream in a on a lake, like in this river, and it was like I don't know, I can't explain it. Look at fucking Google it.
I'll Google it, dude, and I'll see it in person soon enough.
Yeah, man.
That's
So
tight.
I'm gonna smoke on this.
Yeah, get real, man. Like that. This is us.
I ain't gonna quit.
Quitting's for quitters, dude.
Quitters never win, is what
Yeah.
I was always told. So I don't know what you had in mind here for episode number one. What are we doing here? What's going on? How are we doing?
Well, maybe give a little introduction of ourselves. Like say a little
Okay,
bit about ourselves. Someone start with
sure.
that, maybe.
Yeah. Do you want to go first or?
Sure. My name's Rory. I'm producing now under the alias File Not Found. I kind of started this project, I would say like the beginning of this year when I finally got Ableton for myself. I've been producing bass music on and off for a couple years now. Like I would kind of have a bad tendency to drop off and not do it for a bit and then pick it up. And due to the fact that I didn't really have my own copy or I was pirating or whatever, all the reasons. And also I'm very hard on myself with my production, and when I felt like I didn't meet the standards of other people, I would just throw in the towel, which is a terrible tendency. But so this year, thought I'd just switch it up and go back at it, and it's been fun so far. I use Ableton, and yeah, I'm just focusing more on the deeper side of 140 and just
Which
sending
you
it to
you
the
you
end.
kill you kill by the way, man. You just seem to have a natural knack for the deep,
It
ultra
feels
deep.
good. It
Yeah.
feels good. Yeah, I have a
You,
lot. I have a lot more fun with it. Even what I listen to now is it's more on that spectrum. Mm.
Well, and that's what I think people need to realize is that you don't have to make what you listen to,
Mhm.
and for one, and for two, is you should never give a shit what anyone else thinks. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? The when I started making the best music or the music I was happiest with or whatever was when I stopped giving a fuck what people think.
yeah. I'm learning that now because I'm having more fun with it. Like I just would take it way too personal to heart that I was like, not sounding like all the big name artists. I wasn't putting in the work, but
Right.
I was just throwing in the towel. Now I'm just like here to just try it out, have fun, and it's paying off way better that way.
Drop any expectations, man. Like having expectations, I think, is the biggest fucking fight against yourself. It's just, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, and you've
So,
definitely instilled that in me a lot, so it's helped tremendously.
and never stop learning. That's one thing I realized too. Like you can't ever stop learning. If you're not learning, then you're dead, right? Like
Hmm.
if you're not moving forward, then you're stagnant and you're useless, in my opinion, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's right. I get it.
Which I
There's
learned from being a programmer. Like I always have to be on top of all the new things. There's new JavaScript. There's new programming languages every week,
yeah,
and if you're not on top of that kind of shit and you're not always learning, you're useless.
yeah. I feel that.
Yeah, and so I'll do me, I guess. My name is Chris. I go by Unnecessary Roughness, and I've been producing electronic music since 2004. I started with Reason and Logic, and then I moved to Ableton. I've been using Ableton since Ableton 7. Um, I produce fucking weird shit. I don't know what you would consider it. It's like pop music mixed with glitch almost.
Yeah, yeah.
I it's hard to put a label on it, I guess, for myself. Um, Bass heavy music. I just love bass music. In any kind. The weirder the better. And yeah, music for me is my outlet. If I didn't have it, I would explode. But I also go through the same thing where I don't make music for a while, and then I think that's common. I think a lot of
Hmm.
people do that, man. Like you can't always be creative.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, I
yeah,
went for you saw me. I went for a year where I released 120 tracks, and I couldn't stop the creativity. But now I'm having a hard time.
yeah.
Like now I've hit a wall, and
Hmm.
I'm definitely struggling. But that doesn't mean I can't be effective when I hit the studio.
That's right.
So that's one thing I want to talk about with people is that you're gonna have days where you don't do fuck all and you can't accomplish anything. And the more you try, the harder it's gonna get.
That's it. The harder you try, it makes it even tougher for sure sometimes.
And so those are the days that you do paperwork, you do the administrative part of the job, is how I look at it. So Ill Gates actually talks about having two different sessions, right? One where you can make sounds and do sound design and stuff like that, and that's where you can be like ridiculously creative and test things, break things, just experiment, and then sessions where you build a track, and
Yeah.
that's where you have rules, and you're doing more logic work. I find, right, like
Hmm.
this needs to be 16 bars, this needs to be mixed down that way, blah blah blah, right? And that's where you have those rules. And then days where you can't get any of that shit done, you can do sampling. You could do organizing your sample library, researching tools, learning what compression means, things like that, right? Like
Yeah,
people, I think compression is probably the most least understood thing in our world.
yeah.
People
It
don't
is
understand
very.
it.
That's right. That's right. I've
so
always.
so learn.
Yeah. And I think a good thing about that is like staying consistent. Like, you know what I mean? That helps with maybe the creativity, but also just like the workflow, rather than like, if you have a big break and then it's like, okay, you got to get the bearings rolling again when you're going back into it. If you're staying consistent, and even if you're not like building a track, you, like you said, you're making the sounds, or you're still in there and you're still creating some sort of workflow or having some workflow going, instead of just like a dead stop and then trying to get that momentum again, which is really hard
Not,
for creativity.
yeah, nothing's going to make you want to throw in the towel, like you said, other than having a bunch of unproductive days in the studio,
Yeah,
right? Like if you have a week long dry stint like that, you're going to want to fucking be like, fuck this, I'm never doing this again.
that's
Because
right.
for one, you're your own biggest critic. And for two, you can't force that creativity to happen. And if the more you do, the worse it's going to get.
Yeah, every time, every time.
So and you're like, well, fuck, maybe I just can't make music anymore and I'm done and I should just give up. And that for one is a really shitty way of looking at that, and I can see why that would happen for some people.
Yeah, that
But
was that was it for me a lot of times for
if you
sure.
have these other tasks that you can accomplish on studio days, that because you're not feeling creative, but you can still get these other things done and feel good about them, then you're going to feel accomplished.
Yeah,
Does that make sense? You know what
that
I mean?
totally makes
So
sense.
maybe I didn't get any tracks done, or I didn't get my sound design done, but I rebuilt my library, or I learned what this function in operator does.
That's
You know
right.
what I mean? And I learned something new.
And then in
Then you
that
can feel
process,
good about that.
that's right. In that process, you maybe you hear something that sparks some creativity, or you're like, oh, now I want to try this and apply it there, or you hear a cool sample or whatever. Right, coming across that stuff is like a
What
happy
I
accident.
what I find a lot of things, like I actually got this from Dead Mouse, and I think that what people forget to do is sonic exploration. So
Mhm.
we want instant gratification, right? We're like, oh, I want to make a track, I want to do this, I want to make it sound fucking good. That's not going to happen in this world. That's not how this works.
Mhm.
So what you need to do is go and explore. Use a tool you never used before. Limit yourself creatively. Like Mr. Bill talks about it, is if you can limit yourself you limit yourself, then you become more creative, right? So you say, I'm only going to use Ableton plugins, no VSTs for 2 months.
Yeah,
Well, you're going to fucking master the Ableton plugins.
that's very true.
You know what I mean?
That's
And
very true. Yeah, I like that.
you're gonna learn some shit that you're like, oh, I can do this in Operator and and Ableton plugins without using Serum or
Yeah,
without using Phase Plant. It's
yeah.
all there, right? But Phase Plant and that kind of shit makes it easier.
That's true. And I
So
mean, really getting to know the insides and out of one thing and mastering it, like, gets you to be able to, push the boundaries with that. And then you're not trying to learn a bunch of things at once and slowing down what a bunch of things, you can focus on one thing and see what you can really do with that.
right, because like if you have Ableton Suite, that essentially could be everything you could ever need.
Yeah.
Of course, we want the latest and greatest. I always do. I get VSTs that I don't look at for a year because I just never get around to it. Did I need to spend that money? No, but I wanted it
Yeah.
because everyone's talking about it and I wanted to
For
check
sure.
it out, right? And but essentially, Ableton Suite has a wavetable synth. It has
Yep.
Serum built in, and so you can do those same things inside of Ableton or your DAW of choosing, whatever you use. Just learn to use your tools. I
Yeah.
have a
That's a
question that I wanted to ask you. If you could go back in time and tell beginner Rory one thing, what would it be? And I'll give you my answer first if you want.
I for production, I would say telling myself just to like be easier on myself, because that for me was the hardest thing. Like, I did search for a lot of instant gratification,
Right.
and now I'm just like, yeah, I would just tell myself to kind of like slow it down and just you know take it easy.
My answer is very similar. My answer would be forget about releasing a track for anytime soon.
That's good
If I
advice. Yeah,
if I was teaching someone to learn production, I would say get it out of your head that you're making a track at any point soon, because you're
yeah,
not. And if you are, you're in a year or in 6 months, you're gonna fucking hate it. You know what I mean?
that's
And you're gonna be
that's
like,
so true.
I took all these. Why would you think that you could just jump in and be Skrillex, right, or whatever?
Mhm.
You can't. Skrillex put in his 10,000 hours like everybody else, right?
Yeah,
And it's like don't even worry about releasing a track. And that's what everyone wants to do. Release a track, right? I
Yeah.
want to make a track and put it on SoundCloud and show all my friends. I get it. But that's going to just slow you down
Yeah.
because you don't now you like just learning Ableton in itself without a VSTs, any VSTs or sound design at all.
I think I got some lag maybe.
Is a huge task. Like there are still things about Ableton I learn every day that I'm like, holy fuck.
Yeah. It's never ending, really, right? Like,
Do you want to see one of the coolest Ableton tricks I've learned lately?
of
I'll
course
show
I
you
do.
right
Yeah,
now.
for sure.
Yeah,
Let's see.
this one's a fucking game changer. Can you see my screen?
I can. Yeah.
So when you're in your audio effects here, you right click and you go group in folder. Boom. You don't have to group in folder. There they all are, like the Ableton used to be. Remember that?
Oh, what?
Isn't that sick?
That is dope.
I didn't know you could do that. So you just right click, group in folder. Boop. Because they only started doing
Crazy.
that like in Ableton 9 or something, I think, where they started
Yeah.
grouping these. But if you want it the old way, boom, there you go. There's the old way.
Wow. Yeah, I was wondering about that for
Isn't
sure. I
that?
was like, I'm not a huge fan of that new way. You just got
I
to kind of
know.
search through it more. But yeah,
I
that's
know.
sick.
Isn't
You
that
always
sweet?
good tricks.
I just saw that on YouTube and I was like, that's probably the biggest, that's the coolest fucking trick I've seen in Ableton in a long time. Actually, that I was like, fuck.
That's super
And
amazing.
so what I was going for, anyways, with these, with these, learning the tools and all that first, and doing sonic exploration is that you're going to learn things doing this sonic exploration that when you are making tracks, you can be like, oh yeah, I learned how I could make that fucking cool, gnarly sound when I was fucking around and I saved it in a rack, you know?
Hmm.
And so that was one thing Deadmau5 says is like, we got to go back to playing, like play with it, learn
Yeah,
it, and just fuck around with stuff and see what it does when you push the limits on, wavetable synths or whatever, when you crank that knob or do this, that, or add this crazy automation, you know, that's how you learn to get better, in my opinion.
I agree. Yeah, that's something I've kind of been focusing with this time around with the production and stuff. And that's what when I got 11, I went through all the stock plugins and was like, okay,
Yeah.
what's new, what's different, what don't I understand? And then, especially for the stuff that I'm making, I like trying to have different atmospheres and kind of like playing with sound in a big space and like using like the spectral delays and stuff I've never would have used before, but using that and just doing like weird tails on things and like getting crazy weird like effects from it was like just fun. And it like something I would never really do. I'd be more focused on like going into serum or something and trying to build a patch for hours, where I just took like this weird vocal and cranked the dry wet of it and modulate a little bit, and all of a sudden I'm just getting this weird effect and just like great for a big sound in a track or something, like a fill or something.
The way I look at it is if you're looking at videos on YouTube that say how to sound like at the beginning of them, you're on the wrong track.
Mm-hmm.
Because for one, why do you want to sound like anybody else? Like you want to sound like so and so got big because they don't sound like someone else. Do you know what I mean? Like if you look at any of the big producers who last a long time, like look at Skrillex, look at Hero Bust. Those guys have their own sound that they worked on building. I love Hero Bust. He's one of my favorites. You can listen to 10 seconds of a track and be like, this is Hero Bust.
Yeah, right? He has signature style for sure.
That's his sound, and you don't bite that because you're not going to make it fucking anywhere being like, oh, you're the guy that sounds like Hero Bust.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I think that if you want to be able to, I think in this world, if you want to, with making music, you're trying to get your inner self out. You're trying to show the world this is who I am inside, in my opinion, right? And how are you going to do that being like, I want to sound like Skrillex, take the time to learn what maybe how Skrillex got there, but and you can use some of those techniques, but there's a thing in programming called tutorial hell. Okay. And you learn, all you do is do YouTube videos, and it's like you don't actually know how to use these skills outside of these tutorial sets you've watched. So you don't know how to use them in a dynamic way or in a creative way. You're stuck in this box to be like, I know JavaScript, but I've only watched tutorials on how to do this, that, and the other, and I don't understand the concept of thinking for myself.
The bigger picture with it.
Yeah. So learn the tools so that you can think for yourself on that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not a terrible thing to go in and like, see, like, dissect it and learn from
Sure.
it, right? But if you're
Of
like
course.
doing it to have that as your thing, right? It's probably not the best tool or technique to be doing that if you're trying to make your own thing.
Always
For
be
sure.
asking why. So like, okay, yeah, I can take these steps to get there, but why does it work that way?
Yeah.
Why do I get there? And then how are there's always 10,000 other ways that you can get there. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to do it the way fucking Skrillex does it. You don't have to do it the way whoever you idolize does it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not what they would want anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I said, you're not going to get big unless it's like rhythm or something sounding exactly like someone else.
Yeah, that's a big thing in a lot of genres nowadays, though. Too, is just like how much of it is kind of just rinse and repeat.
And there's a lot of that in all music. In all music, you look at the top. Every song that's ever hit platinum has the same 4 chords in it, right?
Yeah, I've
There's
seen the
literally
videos like
a mathematical equation to getting a hit song, but that's not what I think. A lot of people that, especially underground producers, are here to do.
yeah.
You know?
So I have a question for you then,
Yeah.
and because when I've listened to your music over the years, it's I've always can say it's by far some of the most unique sounding stuff I've ever heard. Like there's, I don't think I've ever came across someone else and been like, oh, it even sounds remotely close to Chris. So
Yeah.
where, like, what was it that you stumbled across to be like, oh, this, because it now over the years it's refined, but it definitely still has that style. So what was it that kind of got you on the path, or how did you feel that you got that way to get that kind of style?
Sonic exploring is exactly how I got there. So when I found that sound, that I was like, whoa, that is cool. I like it. It's unique. And I don't think I've heard anything like that before. It was a happy accident. It was just, I was fucking around. I built the rack. I still have the original rack that I was like, holy shit, this is the sound that I want to use. And, it's somehow I still was able to save it through the fire and everything because I put it on Gumroad. But I have that rack that I was like, I was making presets like, how in Ableton now you can make presets with a little camera icon. And I was like, I clicked this one that I made. And I was like, holy shit. And what it was using Redux. And then, well, here, I'll fucking show you. Why don't I just show you right now?
Bust it open. The OG. We need to see it.
And it was something that if you were just making music out of conventional rules, that you would never be like, you wouldn't do that, right? So what I did is, and it's kind of stupid, but it's awesome. So I go into instrument racks, and I have don't look at the names because I name them bad things, but that's the hardest part, is like trying to come up with names for shit, right? So I think it wasn't this one. Which one was it now? Fuck. It might be in here. I think it's this one. Yeah, it was this one. So I had all these different presets that I was coming up on here, and it was I think it was trashy or something like that. And all it really is Redux and then a vocoder.
Deadly combo.
So, and then the spectral res. I can actually show you the whole fucking thing here, right? It's the vocoder, the spectral resonator, and Redux with a auto filter. So I had the auto filter doing the yoi, right? Auto filter and Redux making a yoi sound, and then the vocoder and a spectral resonator. And I never used vocoder before. Like I very rarely ever do vocoding. But
I don't really have a lot of luck with it when I use it.
Okay, so exactly right, but somehow this combination just magically, like, it just kind of fell into it where I was like, okay, that's fucking sick. And that's how I got to it. And I'll even share this whole rack online later. But let me throw some MIDI in there and I'll show you what's going on here.
Take her
So
for a test drive, bud.
yeah. So this was what you're right, and I have gotten more refined since then, but this is where it all comes from, basically.
That honestly takes me back to when you first sent me track. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can
Right.
hear.
Yeah, and a lot of it was that spectral resonator, like you were saying, using the spectral delay and stuff. That spectral resonator is a really fucking cool device,
Yeah,
and I challenge everybody to go check that out and use it in some sound design, because it is really fucking cool.
yeah, I agree.
And so, like, and that all that is I'm using samples, you know, but I was just using these kind of presets to come up with stuff, and that's how I ended up with it. And I think it actually, even if I go up here, and then I just resample that, for hours. I would sit there for hours, man, and make hundreds of sounds. Like I said, I have 29 gigs of samples that I've made. And I want to share them and give them to people, but I don't know how to share 29 fucking gigs of samples.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
Like, yeah, I can't WeTransfer that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it ain't happening.
So like that, my this file lead samples loops, like this is got, like, if in D, I probably have 1,000 samples in here, or 700. I think in F I might have 1,000 or something. And then all just kind of starting off that jumping off point, and then going from there, right? And then I learned, I'm like, okay, well, now I can fucking use vocoder in different ways than I ever thought was possible.
Yeah. So what kind of got you onto the resampling train, I guess you could say, because it's kind of something that, for me at least, over the years, I haven't seen a lot of people doing. It's always kind of what is the new VST and who's using that and building patches in there. So what kind of got you doing the resampling thing?
That's a good question. I think that, so resampling is always the thing, right? And I think when people watch tutorials, what they don't really realize is that a lot of the big producers and shit aren't sitting there with 20 serums in their project. They're sampling that down and they're resampling it and then fucking with it, and then that's how they get that sound. These tutorials, what they're not showing you is how to get to the end. They're showing you, like, well, this is how you start, you know. This is how you could make a Skrillex growl, right? But what Skrillex is going to do is he's going to take that audio and he's going to copy it and he's going to paste it a bunch of times and he's going to fuck with that shit, man. And that's really how you get there at the end of the day. That's what separates him. So what I guess for me is, like, in drum and bass, they use a lot of it. And I got into neuro, right? And so with neuro, it's a lot of resampling and stuff. And I think that's where I kind of got into that, was trying to make neuro sounds.
Yeah, you can see the similarity in a sense, for that neuro sound for sure.
And in neuro, like, it's the guys that are super into neuro are like fucking Nazis about it, man. Like, it's like they got to be. It's like, this is how you make fucking neuro. This is exactly it. There's rules.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, for me, like, me and Rory have a mutual friend, and he has a big rhythm project that is in Calgary, and they're great. And but he is very set on rules. This is how you do it. This is how you sidechain a kick. This is how you do it. This is how it should be. And I get that, but I think for me, you learn the rules so you can break them.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a way more fun creatively. Like, I'm sorry, like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't care what someone uses to sidechain their kick because they can get it down to 0 decibels. Does it need to be at 0 decibels? I don't think it does. Who says who?
Mm-hmm.
You know? 5-10 years ago, brick wall mastering was like laughed at.
Yeah, that's right.
And rhythm and stuff is like where no one else really uses brick wall mastering.
Yeah, that's right. Like just mastering red hot and like blasting the limiters. Yeah, it's kind of crazy right now with that.
If it sounds good to you and you like it, that's all that matters. The rest
Yeah.
will come.
I think even Hans Zimmer said that one time in like a video I watched. He was just like, if there's rules, you kind of gotta push it and try new things for sure.
I've literally been like I have like had a therapist tell me I have oppositional defiancy disorder. So it's like as soon as I'm told this is how it should be, I'm like, okay, well, and that's why I like programming and developing, because there are no rules, right? Like it's like there's no rules, there's no regulation. It's like, well, this is how some people do it, and this is how you could do it, but there's also a bajillion other ways to do it, and that's not wrong. I think that I like learning how other people do stuff that's off the cuff. That's not normal, Well, why do you do it that way? I don't know. I figured it out. Cool. Not I learned it on a YouTube tutorial.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
And even over the years, I feel like everyone has their own 2 cents on how something is or how something works, because I've seen it from like all the people that I've learned from or talked to about producing. Everyone can say, this one thing this is how they use it, and this is what it's for. Like when they're compressing, this is what a compressor is, and then you talk to someone else and like, oh, and this is a compressor and this is what it does, and it's like a different thing, right?
Yeah.
So that's
what if you only learned how to do that one thing through Serum, and you had to do it, and once say Zephyr Records goes out of business and Serum's no longer supported, then you're fucked. When really, if you understand wavetable synthesis, you could do it in any number of synths. Right? It's all the same synth. It's all wavetable synthesis. It's the same tools, and if you just understand the basics more, then everything else comes after that.
That's right. Getting some basic fundamentals of whatever you're trying to learn for that.
In my world, JavaScript is like one of the most popular programming languages, and there's all these libraries that people make, like Twitter and Facebook, and people will be like, oh, I really want to learn React, which is created by Facebook. And it's like, don't learn React, fucking master JavaScript first, then you could build your own React. But very least you'll have an amazing understanding of this library, which is built on top of JavaScript, right? So if you understand how waveforms work and how that all works, then you can use any synth and be comfortable.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So for me, modular synths, and that's how I got into resampling too, is using modular synths, gave me a way better understanding of how synthesis works. And that's because I'm literally using a fucking sine wave at the beginning and I'm mangling it to the end.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Right? Like an 808 is just a sine wave.
Yeah.
Most of Skrillex, a lot of the growls and shit, that's all just square waves. Like it all came from the OG back in time. It was all just electricity that created these things. And synthesizers are just synthesizing electricity, basically.
Yeah.
And so you gotta kind of take a look at it from up here and be like, okay, if I understand synthesis a bit more, I could use any synth and just jump into it and make Silent sound like Serum.
Yeah, that's right.
It's easy. It's, again, a lot of it's resampling, man. Like resampling is the most powerful tool that I think people don't realize. Because you can do so much more with an audio file.
Yeah.
Take that shit that you're working on, render it down, chop it up, reverse it, stretch it out,
throw it in a sampler or something.
Throw it in a fucking sampler, right? And it's pretty awesome. And Satori is talking about how you can create an HTML index page. That's pretty impressive, I guess.
I have no idea what that is.
Well, HTML is not even a programming language. It's just like it's English, basically. I don't know.
Okay.
But that's, where you want to learn. Eventually, you should be programming your own fucking VSTs. I think I think when you look on Plugin Boutique, man, really wicked VSTs are dirt cheap now. Do you notice that?
I haven't even been on there in a while. Honestly, I should check it out.
Like if you check out there's a company called What About, remember them? What About?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hard Bass. They make some sick fucking plugins for like $30.
Really?
And I think we're like so used to being like, oh well, it's good, it's got to cost money for it to be good.
Yeah, that's true. That's really true. That even kind of translates with a lot. Like over the years for gaming, for me, it was like, why would I spend $20 on a game
It's
and
probably gonna suck because it's
and
cheap.
And then now I'm at that point where like I'm buying $4 or $5 games and having the best time, and buying $80 games and just not having a great time with it.
Right. Like look at the new Massive, right? Like everyone's so excited for Massive X to come out, and it came out as it's a modular synth basically. And everyone's like, I don't fucking know.
Yeah, it really did not grab the waves that it
because it's too complex for what most people need.
I haven't even tried it yet, to be honest.
It's a modular synth, right? And it's like that's too much for most people to grasp.
Yeah.
And when you get into modular synths, it's so expensive that you can't start off with Massive X. You start off with one little module, and then you're like, okay, well, what do I do now? I can't even get sound out of this. Well, now you need this, right? And like that was a wicked rabbit hole for me to go down to understand sound design more.
Nice.
When do you think is appropriate to learn sound design? So if you wanted to become a producer, do you learn Ableton first, or do you learn sound design first? Because I don't think you should try and learn both at the same time.
I kind of agree with that. Like, and I guess it depends on what genre or style of music you're making. But this kind of, I can relate to this at the beginning for me, because I always wanted to sound like, the big name artists. And for me, the sound design part was tougher with that. And I could structure a song, I could make the beat and whatnot, but I couldn't make the sound design. Now my sound design was lacking. But I think that to start, you should learn the Ableton, the structuring, like making your beat first, and having that down. For me, I would feel like that's better.
I kind of agree, man. Like I think like learning with loops and pre-made sounds, and that on how a song is structured, and how a buildup is made, and all that is important to learn first, almost, I think, because then you can kind of have an idea of what you want to do when you go into sound design.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, I don't think, like I bet you more than 80% of producers out there don't understand sound design.
Yeah.
Most producers use presets, man. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think if you use a preset and you make it your own, that's different than just slapping on a preset. You know what I mean? Like everyone gives Rez. I don't like Rez all that much, but everyone gives her shit for using presets, and she openly admits it. And it's like, but she still takes that sound and makes it her own. At the end of the day, a Rez song when you hear it.
That's right.
Right. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with that. She's learned how to take these sounds and make them her own without fully understanding sound design, which I don't think most people do.
And I mean, presets or samples like that coming out of packs are good stepping stones to learn. And even for myself, I'm not the best sound designer. I'll be the first to admit it. Even with my sound design, the stuff that I like is very basic with the sounds. Like anyone can make, like an easy wub out, of basic shapes or whatever. And but for me, it's like now it's kind of using the sound design to make it my own, and like more in the atmosphere than just like a synth or like just a wub or a bass sound. It's like trying to create the atmosphere or whatever. So
you're good at that. Like your basses are all encompassing, man. Like they hit the full spectrum. They're not just low end. They're not just high end. They're your bass like really it encompasses the entire track with letting the rest of the track come through, which I think is most important for deep dub, right?
Yeah.
Your main sound is like this low end thing, and people think it's just a low end bass, but it's not.
Yeah,
it creates the whole spectrum.
Yeah, it's been a little bit of a learning process with that for sure, because Bass, the sub bass can be such a tricky part of the track to like make stand out and not like phase with other things and
Right.
take over too much of stuff.
Right. So I remember when I was teaching you how to use Ableton, I would always go on these rants about layers, right? Having the layers.
Yeah.
I don't do layers anymore.
Mm.
You know what I learned, or I figured out my own self, is return tracks. So now I use return tracks instead of layers.
Okay.
And so, can I show you what I mean?
Break it down. Let's see it.
Okay, so let's say I'm just going to grab a lead from just my sample pack here, like one of these. Okay, let's just say we're using this. Okay, I'm going to put this here and delete this. Okay, so let's say this is my bass sound. So I would have multiple layers with my sub, my mids, whatever, right? So what I do now instead is I create a return track. And so let's say I want this to be my sub. I'll put, a plugin on there. I actually really love this one. It's made by Denise, Sub Generator. And then you put this to 100%, change this to F, let's say. I think it's an F, yeah, F. And then I send that here, right? So now I have this layer here of my sub, right? Then I'll create another return track and I'll do, whatever I want, like let's say some distortion. And I'll send it there. And I'll turn this up to usually like 100%. Where is it on here? Mix 100. Let's just use a preset for now. So now I can decide by these volume over here how much of that I want in the mix, right?
That's pretty crazy. I don't mess with returns all that much. Like I'm still doing the layering technique more in a sense, but
Right.
like as it's going through a return, what is that doing? Just controlling the
It's
amount.
basically sending it to another channel to affect it, and then sending that into the master. But what I'll normally do is I won't send it into the master. What I'll do is I'll create another return track, and I'll go over to the other side here, and I'll enable, C, for example, right? So then I kind of have a bus here, and instead of master, I'll do sends only on here, so that those two channels, once they've been affected, go into this third
The other
return
bus. Yeah.
where I can mix it further, and I can listen to that here. Right. So that's a bad example. I wouldn't do that normally, but that's instead of having all those layers, now I can do it this way, which is the same thing. It's the same fucking thing, right? It's just a different way of going about it.
I like that though.
Yeah. And you can do that any way you want. You could also just create another audio track, for example, and you could have that channel go into here and turn this into in, right? And then put your effects on there in any way that you want, and just have like a bus that way as well. Then it's easier to sidechain, I find sometimes.
I'm gonna have to dive into that a little bit and check that out for a mix down.
So in traditional music recording and production, when you use timed effects like reverb and delay, you would use a return. That way you could have like your snare go to your same reverb as your vocal or whatever, right? But with Ableton, you can have it as like a weird effect processing thing, and you can send sends into sends and send them back into a channel. Like it's actually kind of cool. And I just did that kind of doing sonic exploring again.
The Sonic Explorer.
But on another big thing that I do when I mix down music, I learned from Skrillex, right? Which is having buses, pre-master buses.
Okay.
Like, so let me see here if I have I don't really have anything I've done in a while, but maybe this one. So a lot of times what they'll do is like you have your beef of your track in a pre-master, and then if you have pretty vocals and stuff, have that in another pre-master, and those are just groups, buses before. Whoa. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, just double echo.
One.
Mic is coming
There we
through.
go. There we go. I don't know why that was on. So here I have my beef, right? And I have my Vox and my subs in these different pre-masters, which are just groups. And then they go into this pre before it hits the master. And then you can do all sorts of like volume control and compressing before you even hit that master. So that it's just like, because you don't want to have if you have like really beautiful vocals, you don't want them mastered or pre-mastered in the same way that you do the rest of the track.
Yeah, I get that.
And for you, for sub, I would have my subs be in a different group than my beef.
Yeah, I usually will split the sub for its own group,
because as you know, it's going to take up a lot of it might peak your compressor out because it's so heavy.
Yeah.
So if you have these pre-master groups going, separate, you may be compressing your drums too hard because you're also compressing your subs in that group.
Yeah, I've definitely split them. I'll usually split them up. I'll keep which is great with the groups and groups now. Like I can have my drums, and then I can have the kick in that grouped separately, kick and then group the snare and process all those differently, and then that group that all together in the drums. And if it needs a little gluing or something together or limiting or something, can limit the whole drums.
You're not gonna process your snaring and your hi-hats the same way, or your kick and your hi-hats. Like their kick is more like I don't know, like something else. It's a heavy transient. It's it's bass heavy. It's not the same as a snare. So why are we processing it the same?
That's right. Yeah, the groups and groups has been a big help for Mixdown for me, because I can, in my groups, I'll have 5 groups now of stuff, and everything can be separate. And
let's see a track of yours. Why don't you show us a track of yours on here? Because I've always really, I love the way you mix down tracks. I think that the way you mix down your bass is really, really good and clean and better than most, to be honest.
I just finished up. Well, I mean, are they ever finished? But I've been messing around.
Yes, they are.
Well, you know what's funny? That's something too that I'm just kind of trying to leave in the past. Is like when I'm happy with a song, I'm just gonna be like, okay, it's done. Let's move on to the next. Let's not dwell on it, because I've done that before, where it's like it is never ending. You just always trying to perfect it. And I mean, that's good, but I would rather move on to the next thing, learn again, try something new, and apply everything to the next project.
I think that knowing when a track is finished is a very good skill to have.
Yeah.
I think when I was on that kick and I learned, when I was dropping 120 tracks, that was the skill that I had learned, was how to finish when a track is finished.
Yeah. That's you had to master that pretty good to pump out songs like that, dude.
You have to. You can't fall in love with every single one.
Yeah.
I get it. I've been there. I have so many abandoned tracks that are really fucking good because I just didn't know how to finish it. I have a track right now and I love it and it's awesome, and I just don't know how to finish it.
So yeah, this is kind of, I guess, a breakdown instead of the pre-buses, but this is kind of what I talk about. I have all my drums in here, and then in my drums I have my kick, my snare.
I noticed you have your perks in a different
perks and hats. So I mean, it's all pretty much these perks here, I don't know why I have double perks, but yeah, my perks are different, like all my tambourines and bongos, and because I'm not really gonna, it's still lower the spectrum than my hats. My hats are gonna be higher up in the spectrum, so again, why would I be processing them? And even in there, like this hat is, all the group is processed different again than the snare. The snare is processed, the kick, and the drums is kind of grouped together. I guess sometimes if there's a bunch of peak, I'll like maybe do a little soft limiter on it, but I try to mix it in there.
And I think a lot of the times we group our kick and our snares like that because it's easier to sidechain.
Yeah, and well, especially before when I used to do MIDI
Right?
triggers, that's
Yeah.
why I would have it like that. But now I
Me
don't.
too. But really, why would you process a kick and a snare the same way? They're not the same fucking instrument. They're
It
so
would be pretty
different.
wild if you were doing it like that, I guess. I
Right?
mean, maybe back in the day I would have pulled that trick, but even like my basses, right? Like this here is basically my sub, and there's like my sub bass, which is like a little bit lower on the spectrum, and then I have a respace over top of it that's going to be the higher end of the spectrum, and they're still separate. Like I'm not going to process them the same.
Right. And that a trick I learned, I think it was Thomas Anthony, who I love Thomas Anthony. He has good tutorials. He was saying like when you feel the bass in your chest at a concert or something, it's not always the sub it's not the sub frequencies necessarily that are kicking you there. It's the low mid and
that's right.
That really kick you in the chest. So, having a good low mid is very important.
That's it's funny because I was with this track, I was like, that's what I didn't feel. I like the low was there. It's there. You can feel it kind of.
Your low is always there.
It wasn't filling a lot of the spectrum, and it wasn't hitting me like that. I kind of did some digging, and I love this artist here, 11th Hour, and I kind of use this track as a reference and things that I noticed in a lot of his tracks.
They're gonna get fucked up and try now. That's part of the plan. Original Dan. The other one mix the sand man from both up lemon late and some can't understand.
Bass cut out 100 hertz or whatever. Like he had that layer, and then that's where I kind of try that. And it's something that I really normally don't do. Like normally I'll just have a sub even cut at 100. I won't have this extra over 100. I just cut it, but I wanted that to kind of shine through.
Right.
And then have the extra layer above 100 and even.
So what did you do? You just add another layer?
Yeah, I wrote the same MIDI, but this bass is the wider different synth. It's more. Gotcha. It's got a couple of voices, so it's more like a respace, and it gave it more of that width. Where this is just like a sub bass and it's mono out.
Right. And I just in the chat here, like talking to Satori's talking about the Beatles back in the day. Back in the day, the Beatles used a room mic for a drum kit because they only had like 4-track recording. Like I think even before the song In the Air Tonight, they didn't have multi-track recording very well, right? Phil Collins actually was like one of the first people to use 8 tracks on a drum kit. So they would room mic the drums, right? Because they didn't have that many channels to work with, right?
Okay.
And now we have infinity channels. And so I think that's where and where we get our how we work on things came from that back in the day studios, right? Like you mic up a drum kit. This is where your hi-hats or your snare you pan to the left a little bit. There's certain tricks that we learned from 100 years ago. And I'm sorry, but electronic music is not the same.
Yeah, it's a little different.
It's different. We mix down differently. A lot of people don't even use panning in electronic music.
Yeah, you don't really hear it that much because I mean, so much stuff can just be so wide too, right? Like there's not like
when you're recording a band, when you record the drums, you pan the drums in a way that you would visually see them. So the snare's a little bit over here, your floor tom's over here. You pan them that way because your mind understands them better that way, I guess.
Yeah.
So whereas I saw a guy on Reddit, he's like, does anyone use panning in Ableton? Like I've never used the pan knob ever. And it's like, well, maybe as a producer, look at that and be like, how could I use that pan knob so that people's brains like my music more? Because it's not being used now, right?
It really isn't. And it's funny because a good example of someone who, back in the day who used to pan really well is Queen. And I've always noticed this when I had my shitty ass Ford Ranger stereo, and it was just like such crappy stereo. But like when he would do his like Galileo, Galileo. You could hear it left and right. And like, you know, even he does it, they did it a lot in their music. And that's just something I always thought was so bizarre and
So
even never heard
exactly.
so many people do.
So when you do real recording like that, when we're recording real instruments, is you want to give everything a room, okay, a space. So is it in the far in the back? Is it right in your face? And a lot of times you do that using panning and reverb, right? So one of my projects that I had when I took recording engineering was to take the sound of a fly and with just panning and reverb, make it sound like when you're wearing headphones, to make it sound like this fly is flying around your head. Okay. And it was a lot of fun, right? So for example, when you are making vocals, especially, you would mix your backup vocals, your backing vocals, different than your lead vocals.
That's right.
You make them sound far away, right?
Yeah, a little left, one a little left, one a little right. So it sounds like they're kind of
exactly
there.
Exactly, right? And so when you mix down a snare, a drum kit, a lot of the times that's what they would do is the snare is a little bit to the left, the bass drum is center, but your hi-hats are a little bit to the left as well, more so than your snare drums. Your crash over here is over to the right, just like you would see it in real life.
That's right.
And I'm not sure, there's a lot of psychology that goes down, goes behind a lot of this stuff, like the Haas effect. The Haas effect doesn't actually make something wider. It just makes you think it is.
It sounds like it is, yeah.
Like it's not actually wider at all. It just tricks your brain into thinking that it's wider.
Yeah.
And so it can get tricky, especially like with what you're doing. You can get a lot of phase problems. But you never do. You don't have phase problems.
I mean, I do for sure. And I mean, the thing is, a lot of this type of genre, I guess, isn't. I'm going to turn this down again just in case.
Yeah.
But it's because there's not I wouldn't say a lot to it, but it's more sub-bass orientated. It's kind of more mono. It's not a wide sounding genre, but I tried.
It isn't. It's less is more. It's a minimal genre, you would think, but because there's less things, like there's less, things that make it up, you have to really focus on those things.
And that's where I've been really trying to focus I would say before, I would definitely mix things a little bit more. I could feel that, which in the end, like on a big sound system, it's going to sound cleaner because I think most of the big systems are rigged in mono, but
they are. So that's something people don't really realize is that big sound systems are split mono. It's a mono and they split it up.
Yeah, I learned that the hard way, kind of making a track and then having everything super wide, and then when I would play it, it just sounded like air.
Yeah. So speaking of the Beatles, when they mixed a lot of their original albums in mono, and when they came to FM radio, which was in stereo, a lot of their tracks got fucked up because it had phase cancellation, and it was, it didn't translate. And it happened to a lot of artists. And I don't know, maybe that's why still we have AM radio, but you should always listen to your track in mono when you're mixing it down at the end.
Yeah, that's right. That's something that I've kind of picked up over the years is when I do mix it down, I'll check how it sounds, and using this visualizer is really awesome. And
what's
then
that? It's the visualizer just built in.
Yeah. This one is Ozone's. It's free. Ozone Imager 2.
Yeah. I have Imager. It's great.
Yeah, it works really good to be able to see that stuff, and then going back and forth and making sure that like when you're listening to something, you're not losing a lot of volume and you're not losing a lot of the width of it, or it's not changing. So mixing in mono is a big thing that's helped, where I never used to do that before. I kind of just make sure I'm EQing everything and cutting out things that are like phasing each other.
Yeah, it's a weird thing to think about, but like it literally, like sounds will cancel each other out completely.
Yeah,
that's how they used to like make acapellas and stuff. Was you could phase out the instruments by duplicating if you a lot of time with like hip hop, they would do an instrumental version, right? So if you put that instrumental into the track, you could phase out the instruments and make an acapella,
Crazy.
right? And like, it wasn't the best way of doing it, but it got that shit done, you know?
Yeah.
And it's crazy to think that that's how that works. So like with vocals, for example, a lot of times you should have 2 tracks of the vocals, one pan hard left and one pan hard right, but that causes phase. So I will like zoom in until like the farthest I can in Ableton and just move one
Move
over.
it over a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is how the Haas effects works, right? The Haas effect delays one side of the one, like the left or the right, doesn't matter, by like 21 milliseconds is the highest you can go, I think. And that tricks your brain into thinking it's wider.
Yeah. I remember you showing me that
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Yeah. Now I just use wider by there's a plugin.
Oh, that's the infected mushroom one.
Yeah, it's who makes that shit? It's Polyverse wider.
Polyverse.
It's free.
I might have to check that out, boy.
And so like you should be, you know, for you, like your snares have a lot of reverb and you're kind of like supporting instruments and stuff have a lot of reverb. There's a lot of reverb in your genre.
For sure.
So I you should check out returns. So you put your return on there, put a reverb unit on there,
and then
send your snare there, you know.
Yeah, you're right.
Send your percussion to there, have different different reverbs there, and you know, send them a little bit here, a little bit there, kind of thing.
And a lot of things, I guess I could still do it, but yeah, I could just modulate, because that's what I'll do with my reverb is I'm just modulating it on and off into spots, but I could do that with the set
track too. So you're modulating it there so that you're filling that space with that reverb tail, basically, right?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
When I really wanted to come in and fill that space, it's just cranking that dry wet, and then it's on a little bit through the.
So here's a tip that I would, for me, I see that, and what I would do right away is I would render that down into audio, so that now not only do I have that reverb tail filling in that space, but now I could cut out that reverb tail and flip it into the next snare drum, so it goes, you know what I mean? That's what they do in hip hop a lot too, is like when they want to bring in a new instrument or whatever, they bring that reverse reverb tail into the beginning of it, and it makes it hit really well. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, Budsy. I'm picking up what you're putting down, bud.
So especially when there's modulation like that, because modulation gets so fucking messy, man.
It can, yeah.
So one tip that someone always told me is you don't ever modulate your volume on the channel.
You could just use like a utility or something.
Use a utility and modulate that, because then you can always turn up and down the volume of that without fucking up your modulation, right?
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So you can, when you render that down, for example, you'll have reverb tails, and then when you bring that reverse in, sick.
Right? I didn't get it that time. I don't know what happened.
I don't know why you didn't either. I would just have highlight. I think you got to highlight the area first. So wherever that modulation is, just do that.
Okay.
Like I would almost duplicate another channel, then delete everything else, highlight where that reverb tail goes to, freeze and flatten it, and then you'll get that tail, and you reverse it.
Yeah.
I
definitely just cheated and used some riser action, but I definitely get what you're saying for that.
When like with your genre of music, which is very different from mine, you would want to create lots of different rooms and spaces, right? Because you have your sub, which is going to take the low frequency and the mid, or the the center frequency, and then you have all these other supporting things that are there to fill up the rest of the spectrum and the space in the track. And you can do that really well with delays and reverbs on a return track.
Gotcha.
Right. And so you can automate your snare drum. So every fifth snare drum is like, you know what I mean? And have that. But if you later down the road want to send that vocal track like someone going hey into that same delay, you can do that really easily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I do that a little bit, I guess, with just the modulating of the reverb on it.
yeah, it's like sending it to a different channel so that your OG source is good.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'll mess around with that for
Check it out.
sure.
Yeah, check it out and see
Sure.
what you kind of come across, because for you of all people would love a good reverb unit.
Oh, I love me a good reverb, but
Speaking of which, have you checked out Crystalline by Baby Audio?
nope.
Definitely
What
check
is it?
that out. It is a reverb, and it's very clean and very, very nice. I love it. I use it in pretty much everything now.
Hmm.
They also have a delay called Comeback Kid, which I really enjoy for delays. But I think the best delay I've ever used is probably Native Instruments.
You know what? I've been messing with, and
It's my go-to, really. It's right in Ableton. It's the Echo, which is new, I think, too.
I love the Echo.
Because it has reverb and it has delay in it together. You can ping pong it. You can,
It's got you can add width to it too.
yeah, your stereo,
I
everything.
fucking love Echo.
it's
I always resample when I'm using the Echo, because sometimes you can get like an infinite loop going. Like
Yeah,
an
for sure.
You're like, whoa, I need to stop now.
all these spectral, like the spectral time, are so cool too.
Yeah.
Same thing for getting a lot of weird stuff.
The spectral delay is really cool, and I don't use it enough. It's a very cool thing. The spectral time, right?
Yeah, and
Have you-
there's a different the resonator.
There's the vector delay now. I haven't tried that out yet. That's a newbie. And gated delay comes with Suite as well now.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna dive into a couple new things for the next time we go live. I can say, hey, this is what I tried, and this is
check it out. Yeah, let me know. Like, I really love the modulators that come with Ableton now too. Like
yeah, that's something.
Shaper.
Yeah, dude, that's something I never really messed around with, but I am. Where
check
is it?
Out. It's just under modulators under Ableton.
Oh yeah, that's right. These bad boys. Yeah, I have another track that I was just going to town with the modulating everything.
And go on you have Suite, right?
Yeah.
So go onto the Ableton website as well. There's if you go onto packs, there's a bunch of free shit that you can get in there for Max for Live and just stock devices. Like there's one I noticed you didn't have there, the vector map. You can get that off the Ableton website. It's free.
Okay.
I don't know if you've tried the pitch hack. That's a cool one too, or spectral blur. I've looked at them and fucked around with them, and I'm like, who would like these is Rory.
I'm gonna check them
out right after this.
Yeah,
yes,
they are
sir.
so fucking awesome, man. And now there's like all sorts of stuff under like utilities that didn't, like I've got a line delay and all these other things that were not there before that I have to check out.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna dive into them for sure. I want to try
Same with some of the new like instruments in Suite. I don't know if you here. Let me show you. Like I'll show you mine. If you show me yours. No, see under instruments, there's like a bass synth, right? Drift.
Yeah, Drift is they just released with the push, right?
Yeah. I don't know what Drift is. Drift is a synth that came out with the newest Ableton. I've never used it before. It looks cool.
It's a what is it, a wavetable or no?
No, I have no idea. I'd have to do some research on it here. I don't know anything about it, to be honest. How about that new push?
Yeah, it looks pretty sick, man.
What? It's so expensive,
and it's not in stock at all. Like I've been checking
it anywhere.
Yeah, I've been checking here and there because I'm like, man, I may as well just dive into it. Even if I don't know if I'll get the standalone, which would be pretty sweet. But
if you don't get the standalone, you can upgrade the other one to standalone.
Yeah, that's super cool.
That's super cool, man. So here's about Drift. It says part of what makes sound of a classic analog synth is so good is unpredictability. Play two oscillators at the same time, you'll often hear them going in and out of sync, which is true in an analog synth. They'll detune automatically, kind of thing, right? This is the inspiration behind Drift. the new synth that comes with all editions of 11.3. Blah blah blah. Drift is 2 oscillators that can be tweaked, modulated, and routed in unusual and inventive ways. I like the way this sounds. You learn how to fold, pulse, and sync waveforms, modulate dozens of parameters intuitively, and get the most out of Drift's smooth and responsive analog style filters. That sounds fun.
Yeah.
That sounds great to me. I had this one synth when I was doing modular synths, and it was an FM synthesizer. It's one of the only hardware FM synthesizers that you can buy, and you could set up the settings and turn that thing off and turn it back on, and it would sound fucking different. It never sounded the same.
That's wild. That's wild.
It was the coolest fucking thing in the world. Like you could not tame this thing. It was such a random, and the guy took like chips out of old Casio machines and stuff to make this thing work. Like it was the coolest shit. If I want to get back into modular a bit, I would only go with this one brand. Because the guy like takes the sound card out of like old video games and puts it in a synth and stuff. You know. Like,
yeah, that's pretty wild.
It's cool. It's cool. That learning that kind of shit will give you more originality.
That's right.
You know?
That's right.
Yeah.
Well,
that is fucking right.
How about maybe for, let's say, like the next podcast we do, we both can do a little homework with Drift here and see what we come up with, and then we can share it next time and say, oh, this is what I kind of came up with, and this is.
I like it. Let's try and each make 5 presets with Drift.
Okay.
Of any kind. Can be bass, synth, whatever you want. Let's just come up with 5 ways to use Drift and see what we come up with.
Love it.
Let's decide our new what the next schedule is going to be. When is the next bass therapy going to be? When are we going to do that?
Sundays are good. Pretty open Sundays, so we do a week, 2 weeks.
Let's do, I'm down for whenever. I have no life.
let's see.
I literally do fuck all.
I think. Let's do 2 weeks for now, because my work schedule is a little hectic Monday to Friday, so that gives me the weekend to mess around, and then my night. So let's say if we do every 2 weeks, I think that would be, for at least for now, it would be pretty safe for me.
So let's say the 9th.
Okay.
Which is None of It Day.
Sweet. We will celebrate.
We'll be celebrating big time, None of It way. And so I was gonna say, like, if people are watching, listening, whatever, if they have questions or things that they want us to talk about, is to just send us a message and we'll fucking talk about it.
Can we share the Discord in the chat or anything like that?
Do we have a Discord?
The Bass Therapy Discord.
Oh, right. I see some of this stuff kind of got away from me. I will find it and share it. The Bass Therapy Discord. Yeah. Okay. I will share it. It is, easily found by just going Bass Therapy, I believe, is it not?
Yeah, it's a thing. It's definitely a thing, dude.
People, I haven't. You know what's funny is I haven't been on there in a hot minute, and people are still definitely using that. Like
here, I don't know if I can put anything in the chat, but I can.
Yeah, let me see here in the chat. I can. I don't know how to use computers.
They can be difficult.
Let me see how I can do this. I can go.
If you just open Discord, it has all the groups on the side there, and just.
So do we just want to go? How do I share it though?
Let me see.
Copy link. Would that be how?
Maybe. I think that's the one right there.
People are like, aren't you a developer and stuff? Like, yeah, but I don't develop on computers. Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'll share this in all of the chats, I believe, is how I can do this. Hey, I did.
Boom. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. If or send us a message, whatever. People, if there's topics like we're gonna run out of shit to talk about. Now we won't.
We got a lot. I got my whiteboard beside us, and I think I really touched on.
Look at Satori. He's already got it. He's like, here it is, you idiots. Maybe just put him on the team.
He's our moderator right there.
Yeah, fuck.
Oh, you're a legend. You're a legend, Satori. You're the man.
Thank you, the man. Yeah, thank you for being there and actually giving us some content to talk about too.
Hanging out, man.
I do appreciate that. Yeah, and if people have tracks that they want us to like just check out and give advice. We're not the end all be all by any means necessary, but maybe we could give some good tips.
Yeah.
Do you want to share a track? Do you got anything you're working on? Can I show you a track?
Let's show it.
I'm calling it. This track is called Some Kind of Way. I'll just show. This is the track that I can't finish.
Mm.
And maybe it is finished. It was one that I was working on and forgot about before I moved to New Brunswick.
Oh, okay.
By the way, I think if anyone's thinking about it, move to New Brunswick.
It's the spot.
There's nothing happening here. But anyway, okay, so here it is. Can you hear that?
Yep. You always have the most epic intros.
I try.
It is our duty as human beings, no matter what our political persuasion, our religious preference, race, or nationality, to raise one unified voice of protest, of indignation.
We brought the sound that shook the ground.
Jesus. I love that you brought back the dial tone.
Right? More phone calls.
I love that drop.
Thank you. Thank you. On build-ups, I think it was fuck, I forgot where I heard it, but your build-up is just as important as your drop.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing I think people don't think about.
Oh man, where are we going? We're at a rock show now?
You know me.
Yeah.
This just comes from a wish of always learning that I wish I learned how to play the guitar. I have no idea.
Sheesh, boy. Great trap now. Oh my god, we're on a musical journey.
I know. I probably won't even release it, to be honest.
I think I love it all. I think you just need a pre-drop at that first drop. There's
Yeah, it gets a little. It's like a little. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I need something there to break it up almost.
just on that first one.
I've been using. I forget what it's called now. There's like an artificial intelligence where someone just made it watch TV, and so now you can type in whatever you want, and it's called UberDuck.
Oh, okay.
And so I've been getting my own samples off there. So like I have like, let me see. I got Patrick from SpongeBob.
Fuck me up, bass daddy. Fuck me up, bass.
You know what I mean? Like Strong Bad and Sir Strong Bad.
Unnecessary roughness.
That's sick.
And yeah, like that's where I got the comic book guy.
Worst unnecessary roughness sample ever. Worst.
Oh, that's amazing.
So UberDuck is free.
UberDuck, check it out.
Yeah, check that shit out. It's free. You can get lots of fun stuff like that. I also have some still
Brogan.
Classic. I have all the samples that he gave them to me.
I guess
I'll just do a quick plug of the first drop of this track, and then
hold on. Let's show yours here. Let's go like this. There we go.
And turn it down, and if it can go louder, It's mastered, so it's probably banging loud.
Let's hear it. Turn it up. You can turn it up. Good, I think. Fuck yeah. Woo! Deesh.
I'm trying to figure out the balance too. I got this bad boy, and I've never used that before, but
I love I love where you like just before it came in there and you had that like cool like wow. That was fucking and I love the usage of the file not found, like the glitch stuff, like it sounded like it was like dying there for a second. Like,
you inspired me with all your like watermarking that you've done in your tracks.
Yeah.
So I think I'm gonna try and do something along the line in the same sense, like the
dude, check out freesound.org. I always they're the best. Freesound.org. You can get lots of like computer sounds, people recording their computer crashing and things like that. Like I got samples off there of like somebody opening a CD tray and stuff like that, and like
Yeah.
so you could really use those kind of samples. I think like with the whole file not found thing, like having it glitch out. Fucking, I think it's I'll have to look at this for you too. I think it's Isotope used to have a plugin that was like a vinyl. Here it is. It's called Vinyl, and you can do a like a slowed spin down on your track.
Okay.
And I would actually send my entire track there and do a spin down. So it's like, yeah. You know what I mean? And that's a free VST vinyl by Isotope, and do that spin down. So you can kind of like, it's almost like crashing a little bit, or someone bumped the turntable or some shit. Like, that'd be cool for you as well. I think that you could do a lot of cool things, and you should watermark your shit, man. I think that's one of the best parts about making electronic music is like it's fucking sick. I learned that shit from Hoochie. You ever listen to Hoochie?
Yeah. Hoochie.
In every track, he's like
Yeah.
Hoochie, and I like throwing it in like cheeky ways. You know what I mean? Like the cheekier the better, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And that's why I have all these vocal samples of like people saying stupid shit. Like I found in any movie that I can find where people say check please.
Check, please.
Yeah, it's something that you can come to expect when you hear your track, like your traditional, your
Or
sound
like,
design
yeah.
and your that sampling. You always have those those samples that just stand out for sure.
And I don't know if you've ever noticed in a lot of my tracks, whenever I like have my first drop and then something like cool happens where I'm like, I like that drop a lot. I always throw in a laugh, like a cheeky laugh, like you know what I mean? And it's just kind of being like, yeah, I did that,
Sure, yeah,
I think people like that shit. People love that shit.
I love that. Well, I know for me, like that's another thing that really sets, like when I hear your tracks, like I know I can expect those two things for sure. Like along with a lot of other things, but I know it's going to be the craziest sound design ever, and the samples are going to be. They're going to be so unique too.
Yeah, like I love sampling TV show. I've just been sampling a lot of Judge Judy lately. And I still got some really good Judge Judy.
Try putting on your listening ears. Try cut off his mic. I don't think they call it anymore. A booty call. I don't think.
Speaking of Judge Judy and booty, she got a dumper on her. I don't know if you've ever seen a picture of Judge Judy's butt, but she is thick, and everyone needs to check it out and give some praise to Judge Judy's butt
right now. Judge Judy's butt, eh? Oh yeah, she's got a badunkadunk. She got
a dump truck, bro.
Whoa. Let's just see what's going on here. Yeah,
I came across that not too long ago. I was like,
where did you learn about this?
It just came up on the internet one day, and I was like, man, is she hiding that thing behind that court? And
what the fuck, man? Like, let's just take a look here. Let's just go. Hold on a second here. I'm gonna go to mine, and I don't know where it went. Well, I'm just sharing the window here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share the entire screen of this one. And
everyone needs to be blessed with a little badonkadonk. Judge
like
here.
Look at this. Look at this thing.
Like, she got some cake. What is going on there?
Yeah, I had no idea.
You would never guess it.
Just Google, look at the hips and everything, man. Like
those hips don't lie, bro.
Just Google Judge Judy's butt, and you'll find.
Mr. Satori is he had a question. He's saying I want to write something. Oh no, sorry. How long do you spend making a track for real? What's the self-honesty response?
That's a tough one, man. I mean, I could write a track in a day, and I could write a track in 10 days, and I could write a track in a year.
That's right.
It all depends on the track and how things go and how I'm in that mood that day. Like I've written a track in a couple hours because I have my sample packs, right? And I not so much these days, but I can write a track in a couple hours, and I can be writing a track for a year. And that's a hard one to answer. And I think that don't give yourself those limitations. Know when it's done, and just drop it, get it out of your fucking hands before you hate it.
Yeah, that's the big thing for sure.
Because before when I was making music in Post Humans, by the time I released a track, I didn't like it anymore.
Mm.
You know, I
Yeah.
don't want to fucking hear that track ever again. And now it's like, okay, get the track out while you still like it, because it's going to take you a month to release it properly, right? And it's like, you don't want to be like, fuck, I hate that track already.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
So,
it's true.
but learning when a track is done is a really good skill to have, and being able to not beat a dead horse is really what you're trying to do. But what is the answer to when a track is done? I don't know.
Mm.
I have no idea.
I would say for me, for time wise for a track, I do spend a lot longer than I would like to say. Like I will a lot of times structure. I'll kind of start with a loop, a 16 loop, and I can make that pretty quick. And then I'll sit on that for a little bit and I'll write a couple of them. And then when I have the idea to build off that, I'll kind of spend, whatever the weekend, I'll make variations of that track. I'll make 64 bars all differently and see, okay, what stands out, and then I'll build another week off that section that I like, and then I'll listen to it for a week and I'll go, okay, it for me, I would say a month it is usually where I spend on a track.
Yeah,
for me at least.
I think that's a good answer.
I have a example of.
Is that done, mastered, ready to go?
I would say around there. Yeah. I don't like to try to spend, because like after a month you've heard it so many times, and that's where it gets to that point. And then I like to try to have a master done on it, listen to it on a couple of speakers, listen to it in the car and see, okay, do I like it? And if not, I'll say no. Like I don't know if I can show my screen here. This track that I have here, the track that I just played is this track, and they're two different tracks. But that's what I got from this. And I had this track where I thought it was done.
Yeah.
I was like, it's done. And I ended up just, I don't know, one day I was like, no. And then somehow it kind of migrated to that other track. And I spent, I only spent a little bit of time once I got to the structure. I didn't mix this down. And then it turned out that, so this was like, this track here was a couple days, and that other track was turned in from this track took me a month.
What do you spend the most time on in that month working on? Is it sound design? Is it laying out the track? Is it mixing it down?
I think it's mixed down for sure. Mixed down. And
yeah. See, for me, I try to spend less time on mix down.
I would like to. I
try and mix as I go. I try and mix as I go a little bit, but that can get messy too. And then to answer the other question, I think that Satori's asking is like, per session, how much time is that what you're asking? Like how much time to set aside to really dig in? That really depends on the session. Like don't try and push yourself to a point where you're like, I'm exhausted and I don't want to do this anymore. If it's not fun anymore that day, then go have a fucking nap. You know what I mean? Like don't set aside, I'm going to set aside 4 hours and I have to fill that 4 hours.
Yeah.
Don't make those rules, because if it stops becoming fun, then what are you doing?
Yeah.
Right. This is what we're here to do, is have fun at the end of the day. This is a hobby. None of us are famous. And even if I was famous, I'd want it to be fun.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a huge thing. Like a deterrent for me at the beginning too. Like I would just like take the fun away from it, because I was always just trying to make it happen. There's days when I get home from work and I'm all day at work, all I can think about is making music. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be great. And then I get home and I'm like, I'm tired. I sit in and I stare at the screen and I'm like, no, it's not happening today.
Why am I giving myself this extra stress and anxiety over something that I used to love doing, that I love? And at the end of the day, I love making music. And if there's a day where I don't love it, I'm not going to do it that day. And that's where little breaks sometimes need to happen, man. Is people are like, have been asking me like, why haven't you released a track in a while? It's like, what's going on? Are you okay? I've had people like, are you still alive? I'm like, yeah, I just, I'm just not feeling it right now. And if it doesn't come naturally, then fuck it.
Yeah.
I'll go and doing something else. I'll go spray paint or whatever for a couple hours, but once it starts flowing again, I'll be all over that shit. Take advantage of it when you can.
Yeah.
But if it stops becoming fun, none of us are going for Grammys here. We're doing it because we like doing it. And that's how, when I started doing this unnecessary roughness project, it was like, I'm going to release the music that I want to release. I've always worked with partners who have always had very big opinions on what kind of music we should release. And I want to just release whatever I'm feeling that day, and fuck everyone else. If you don't like it, don't listen to it.
Yeah.
The fans that are going to appreciate what you make are going to find you, and those are who you want to, that's who you're releasing for. But at the end of the day, release for you.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be releasing because you want to get famous. I think that's the worst way to go. That's how you'll never get famous.
Yeah, I think that's how a lot of like the blow up of like the underground happens. You know, it's just these underground guys that are just like, you know, making tunes and they're just having fun and they're just releasing it. They're just putting it out for free on SoundCloud, and then, you know, all of a sudden like someone kind of hits them and they're like with that and they're just like, oh my God, like check this out, right? And it's like, instead of like the people that are like paying all the subscriptions and paying the blogs or whatever, and, you know, having 10,000 plays on their song.
If you got to force it, then it's not connecting, right? And it's probably people can see through the bullshit. Do you know what I mean? I think I can listen to somebody's track and be like, okay, you're not in this for the love of it. And you can hear it in the music. And I think that's what, at the end of the day, no matter how good your mix down is, no matter how good your mastering is, or who reposts your track, is people can see through that bullshit real quick. You know, especially if you're, for me, making tracks that are emotional and things like that. Like, I can't force that. You can't make that shit up. When I'm hurting, I make better music. You know what I mean? And people feel it. You know what I mean? And so with music that has that vibe and that's feeling, you know, you can't fake that shit. There's no tutorial on that shit. You know what I mean? Like, your tracks always have a wicked groove and a good vibe. That's not something that you can just learn on a YouTube channel. That's something you have to feel and love the music to get that.
Yeah. And that's another thing where we're like, in a session, like if I'm not in that vibe, it's kind of not happening. You know, I kind of got to be in that vibe to have that vibe, create
and
that.
Because otherwise you're faking it, and it's not going to go well.
That's right.
and you stand by your music, right? Like you do this because you love it. You know, if it goes nowhere, for me, I've reached all my goals that I wanted to achieve music wise. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've had someone message me and be like, your music got me through hard times. And I'm like, I can die
That's
happy.
beautiful.
That's all I've ever wanted. That's my goal, was to help people, you know, get through hard times via music. And I've had multiple people say that, and that's better than having a million plays. That's better than having some famous DJ play my music. You know, I'd rather have that a million times over than fucking try and make it.
Yeah.
You know?
That's a powerful thing that
the chances of making it, you have a better chance of getting struck by lightning. You know, so just do it for fun and for the love. And if the rest happens, fucking great. If not, just keep doing what you're doing, man. Like, that's why, like, who cares if you didn't follow the rules?
Yeah.
You're not trying to win a fucking Grammy.
Yeah, that's right. Satori actually, he picked up Ableton. He has Ableton, so
nice.
And he's in the Discord, so maybe one day we can have like a Discord chill and just fart around on that. That'd be kind of fun too.
If you have questions on Ableton, I went from Logic to Ableton as well, and it's the same fucking thing. Like, it doesn't matter what tools you use, right? It's not about the gear, it's about the ear. So if you use Logic, if you use Ableton, if you use whatever that free DAW that Spotify made, good for you. You know, GarageBand used to be a joke, and now GarageBand is just as powerful as Logic.
Yeah.
You know, so just do what works for you. If Ableton doesn't work for you, don't use it.
Yeah.
You know, it's but at the end of the day, they're all the same. Really.
Yeah, it's just whatever you kind of jive with, really, right? Yeah. And be able to express yourself with the easiest.
Your trial ends 79 days now. Well, if you already own Logic and you're using Logic and that workflow works for you, then just use Logic, man. The only thing at the end of the day is, like, you can take any tip or tool from any DAW and translate it into the one you use. And if it doesn't, then it's not a good tip. It's not good information, because it's all the same at the end of the day. Whichever DAW you use, you should be able to get to the same place, right? Logic is great. Apple has spent a lot of money on Logic, and there's like all of the a lot of like the VST makers that were going under, Apple bought. And so you get these like really wicked VSTs built in that are now Apple VSTs or plugins that are now, like camel fat and shit. They were going under and Apple bought them.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the well, as long as you're buying it at the end of the day, too, don't fucking pirate your fucking tools, man.
Yeah, I was that guy for a long time, and looking at it now, I wish I would have just bit the bullet way earlier.
You can fucking lease you can finance it now.
That's how I did it this year. Yeah, that's exactly how I did it.
On Splice, you can finance shit. You can pay monthly. Do it that way, man. But if you're not supporting the DAW that you use, then what the fuck are you doing, man? How do you expect it to get better, right? Like,
what are you doing, dude?
I don't like that Ableton doesn't do this and blah 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 blah, but I pirate it. And it's like, well, maybe if they had more money, they'd be able to fucking build those tools, man.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, as long as you're using it, man, and using like the Ableton, the very basic one is a cool way to learn, man. Right? Like, don't
light or whatever. It's
work with 4 channels for now. That's all you fucking need to get started.
That's right.
Right? Like,
well, the trial is amazing. It gives you full access for 3 months.
Is it?
Yeah, it's 3 months. So I mean, that's a heckin' good trial. Most things are like, a week, where 3 months, and you can export audio, you can save, you have full access to everything. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
back in the day, it was like you could get light or whatever, and it was like you got 4 channels.
Yeah, or you couldn't like export or save your session.
Well, and I get that times are rough, and then you know what, man, like start somewhere that you're is within your budget, and go from there, right? If you're not working right now and you need something for free, find something for free. There's lots of other softwares that are not as expensive as Ableton. There's lots of free things out there, but just don't pirate it. Like, don't pirate it and expect to have someone take you seriously, as in my opinion. Like, when I look at it, Ableton is the most supported by the community, right? There's lots of answers you can get online, and there's lots of documentation for things online that you can get support for without having to talk to the manufacturer. And I think that's just because it's the most popular, you know what I mean? But that doesn't mean it's right for you. Try, Reason has a monthly subscription. Check out Splice, because you can like literally finance it per month. It's like $12.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't afford it, then you can't afford it. But check out, there's some free shit.
Yeah, there's options out there for sure.
There's tons,
in 79 days, you can get a lot of stuff done in 79 days if you're still on that trial. Like, there's a lot of time left on there to learn and mess around with on it.
And you don't need Ableton Suite to start. You don't.
Very true. And you can just upgrade.
There's a lot of tools on Ableton Suite that I don't use. Like, it comes with all these samples and stuff, and they're not for me. I don't use them. But Logic was replaced by Ableton. You won. That's pretty awesome. That if you have Logic forever and you have that license, use Logic. GarageBand is also free and is apparently just as powerful as Logic these days. Like, I was on Reddit and this guy was like, should I switch to Logic? And people are like, nah, just keep using GarageBand. Yeah, like, and one thing I discovered is that, did you know Native Instruments and Isotope are the same company?
Did not know that.
Isn't that crazy?
That is pretty crazy.
Like, some Irish company too.
I love Isotope. Everything Isotope is great. I love Native Instruments for their controllers. I had a lot of the Native Instrument controllers. I find that their plugins are very CPU
intensive. So is Isotope.
Yeah, they are. You're right for sure. I only can use a few of them at a time and then freeze and flatten it or
right. So what I really like about Native Instruments is, and this is only recently that they became one company, but I just started getting into Contact. And And so buying Contact is actually really worth the money because there's all these instruments that anyone could easily make an instrument on Contact for super cheap. So, if you want drum sounds, it can be drum sounds. Piano sounds, you can get piano sounds. There's all these fucking really, really good tools and add-ons to Contact that you can buy for cheap.
Sick. That's super sick.
Contact is my main jam. Perfect. Contact is sick, dude. Like, and if you can start learning to build those Contact libraries, you could sell them and make money that way. Like pretty good money, man, doing Contact libraries.
There you go.
And like that's like the closest thing that you're gonna be able to Contact. And what's the other native instruments thing? Like that's kind of like Contact. It's what the fuck is that shit called?
You're asking the wrong guy.
No, I'll get there. I'm working on it. Massive was actually built inside of it. Reactor. Okay. So if you get Contact in Reactor, that's the closest thing to making your own VSTs without knowing C++. Like Massive was actually built in Reactor. It's not programmed on in its own way or anything like that. It's actually just built in Reactor. So if you have like Reactor and Contact, you can get a lot done and say fuck every other VST.
There you have it, folks.
Instrument wise, anyways. Not effects.
Boy.
Yeah, Reactor. Check out Reactor Satori. It's pretty cool.
You're pretty cool.
Don't lie to me.
Dude, you are cool, dude.
I'm so cool that the only friend I have I talk to over the internet, being you.
Well, I mean, if I was closer, we'd be hanging out, dude.
Yeah. No, for sure. We wouldn't though.
Soon.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm gonna take you up on that.
That's happening, dude.
Yeah, you're right. Plugins wise, everything's really powerful, man. Even fucking Fruity Loops now is like
It's big. It's blown up over there. It gives Ableton a good run for its money, and it's fairly cheap too.
It's really. Does it only work on PC though?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either. I think it is. Also, go on like there's another DAW. It was like one of the original guys from Ableton.
Bitwig.
So Bitwig apparently is really powerful and cheap. You can buy Bitwig Studio 4 for $300, but there's also a $79 version.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And then so I love Isotope and I love that kind of shit, but so what I do is I buy the cheap version when they come. Crash? What happened there?
Crash action.
Whoa. Anyway, with Isotope, what I do is I buy the demo version, and then if you buy that in a couple months, I'll be like, "Hey, upgrade for $100 instead of $3." And that's how I built my Isotope collection. Is just by doing that.
Genius.
It's expensive, man.
It is expensive. The Isotope has a sick sale right now, 50% off everything. I think summer sale.
They always have a sale. Isotope is always on sale, man.
It's decent because it's pretty expensive, so it helps out.
It should be on sale. They also have a monthly membership that's really nice too.
Yeah, you get like access to almost everything. Yeah,
for $20
for a sub. That's smart. That's really smart to do.
And if it gets updated, you get the new version for free. It's already there. Like you don't have to pay to update the from RX 10 to RX 11, which may cost $300. Or I think it's more than that, but you automatically get the new version.
Yeah, that's so worth it.
It's worth it, absolutely. Space Designer was nice. I don't know what that is. I had a Logic plugin, I think. But again, it's all about it's all the same shit at the end of the day. It's all multi-track recording system. I gotta go push some buttons and keys. Well, send us a track. Send us what you're working on there, Satori, and we'll rip it apart for you.
That's right.
All right, so we'll see you guys on the 9th. I think that was fun. I had a good time.
We'll have the drift homework. We'll have the patches.
Yes, sick. 5 patches of any kind, and let's see what we come up with. And I've also got a little present for you.
Ooh, I love presents.
I've been working on some file not found samples.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
The next little live stream that we do, I will give you this pack that I've made. I've made quite a few file samples for you. Files of file
You're,
not found.
you're such a legend, man. I can't wait.
I got nothing going on, man.
You're a legend, buddy.
I'm retired. Freedom 37.
Good man.
All right. Well, we will see you guys on the 9th, and send us tracks, send us questions, send us dick pics, whatever.
Yeah, whatever, dude.
Yeah, dick pics especially.
For sure, mostly dick pics.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Good seeing you, dude. I love you. Love everyone.
Everybody.
Stay safe.
Peace out.
Peace, bro.
Mwah.